Hi, my name is Connor Riley, and on this week's Gimme 5, we're going to answer your questions about why Georgia hasn't had a night game this year. As LambChops123 on Instagram asks, what's the point of the light show if we never play night games? And LambChops does have a point there. Georgia's one of two Power 5 programs that hasn't yet played a night game this season or won't play one this weekend. The other is a 3-4 Virginia team. It's certainly curious that the defending national champion and the number one ranked team in the country at this point in time has not yet played a game under the lights. Georgia only has one home game left this season. That comes at the end of the year against Georgia Tech, a game that has notoriously been a noon start. But Kirby Smart isn't exactly upset about the lack of night games in the same way the fan base, understandably so, is. For one, it's easier to recruit and get to spend more time with recruits for a 3:30 game than a night game, as Coach Smart explains right here.
Nah, I don't ever concern myself with when the game is. I mean, if you had to say a perfect time for recruiting, it would probably be 3:30. It gives you time to visit with them afterwards, and you actually get to see them. You know, the night game is, number one, it's not great for your team. You're sitting around waiting all day, and then you get more time with the recruits on the front end, but less time on the back end. The 3:30 gives you time on the front end and back end, but I'm not complaining or looking for anything.
There is also the fact that coming out of a night game, you do have less time to prepare for an opponent. Consider with the Georgia Tech game at the end of the season, that game starts at noon and it usually ends around 3:30. Georgia does get a slight head start on preparing for the SEC championship game as it has in years past, and it will get a slight jump start on getting ready for Tennessee next week, with Georgia's game against Florida starting at 3:30 and Tennessee getting one of those coveted home night games this week against Kentucky. Fans understandably want night games. There's the fact that they get to tailgate all day. It's a little bit easier to get into town, though it is harder to get out, and sometimes you do have to find a place to stay overnight. And there's the fact that Georgia does have a pretty nice light show to show off, as they did in the Notre Dame game back in 2019. But the coaching staff obviously doesn't care too much about this, and I think that's maybe the bigger takeaway to have from this. The biggest reason perhaps Georgia hasn't had a night game yet is because of television. The way the TV contracts are set up between CBS and ESPN, CBS gets first pick. For the game against Tennessee, they're going to pick that game, and they already have, and that's why it's playing at 3:30 instead of at night. When the new ESPN contract starts with the league in 2024, the league will be able to move around and maneuver more to get more primetime matchups within the SEC. So then you could possibly see the best game of the SEC each week, no longer at that 3:30 start time, but maybe in the 7:30, 8 o'clock window as you have with ABC. Obviously, fans are going to want to continue to see a night game, and there's a very real possibility that Georgia, the defending champion and number one ranked team in the country, doesn't have one this season. But as Kirby Smart explained, there are much more important things to focus on with this Georgia football program than when the game kicks off. My name is Connor Riley, and this has been Gimme 5. Next week, Mike Griffith will be answering your questions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.